Hello and welcome to Pastor Well. I'm Hershael York, Dean of the School of Theology at the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary in Louisville, Kentucky. I'm also Pastor Emeritus of the Buck Run Baptist Church in Frankfort, Kentucky, after serving there as senior pastor for 20 years. I love to talk to servants of the Lord who are engaged in ministry, especially pastors, shepherds, and we do that by engaging in conversation about subjects that matter to us. I want to encourage you to think about how to attract more men to your church, to your congregation. Now, that sounds like it's some type of a sexist, controversial statement, but it's really not, because frankly, I've never seen a church that had more men than women. Now, I have opinions about this, why that is, but frankly, I just think there's something about women that are more naturally inclined to spiritual things. I believe that. I don't know why. I believe we're all totally depraved. We all need the grace of God, but just about every church in America has more women than men. Uh, it is a lot more common to see a woman who'll come without her husband than it is to see a husband who'll come without his wife. Now, there has been something in recent years where young men do seem to be coming to church in greater numbers than young women, which is an interesting phenomenon. But still, I think in evangelical churches, it bears out that more women come than men. And so I just want to talk about how to think how we can get more men. And one of the things that I think you really need to do is make sure that you're looking at the physical plant of your church building as a place where men are comfortable coming. I remember one time preaching in a particular state, and they had me come to a church and preach, and I got there. It was a weeknight service, and there were, I'm going to say 80% of the crowd was women. And this was a church service, like sort of like a revival type service. And yet I looked around, 80% of the congregation were women. And I began to wonder why that was so. Well, I looked at just the decor of the church. It really felt like I was sort of in, how do I put it, a ladies' bathroom. There was potpourri everywhere. They had, pink and mauve and powder blue colors and flowers everywhere. And this was in a place that was a rural area. And I just thought, man, men are going to come here. They feel like they're walking into the ladies' room or something, because it really was decorated for women. And, I just thought there's something wrong with thinking only about a particular kind of person when you decorate the church. In 2014, I began to lead Buck Run through the process of planning for a complete relocation. And we met with architects. We went through all that process of what kind of a building are we going to build. And I gave the architects one instruction. I said, make it masculine. Use neutral colors. I don't want pink, powder blue, or mauve anywhere in this building. I mean, after all, the name of the church was Buck Run. I mean, that in itself says something. But I wanted there to be lots of timber and stone. I wanted there to be a fireplace, a hearth. Here, what I've discovered is that women are fine being in those spaces that are decorated like that. Men are not so fine being in spaces that are decorated more feminine. And so if you're going to reach both men and women, I think you need to go with neutral kind of decorations. Think about having a place where men are comfortable coming, where they don't feel like they're going into something that is just inherently feminized. Because, the gospel of Jesus Christ is for all people. It's for men and women. But there's no question Jesus was a man. He was a man's man. I don't mean by that he's some type of He-Man toxic masculinity. He didn't have tattoos. He worked. He was comfortable in his own skin. He was the kind of man that people were comfortable coming to. And I think that's what our churches need to reflect, is how we can get men to come. So first of all, they're comfortable with the physical plant, the building, the decoration of the building, but then they need to be encouraged to be godly men. I think pastors really need to challenge men. I'm so grateful in our denomination, the Southern Baptist Convention, where I serve, our missionary heroes have been women. We have the Women's Missionary Union. Our missionary heroes are Lottie Moon and Annie Armstrong. Women have largely led in Southern Baptist commitment to missions. It's just been a remarkable thing. And to this day, there are more women on the mission field than men with the International Mission Board. I watch the every year when we have commitment services, commissioning services, you'll see that there are a good number of single women who are going to the mission field, a lot fewer single men. And I think, first of all, we need to celebrate what women are doing. I in no way want to negate that. I'm just saying, I think men need to match that level of commitment and intensity. And we need to make sure that we're challenging them. So in our churches, when we get men to come, it's a place where they're comfortable coming, then I think we really need to challenge them. Two of the three churches that I have pastored, when I got there, they were led in large measure by women. I never once fussed at the women. I never once preached a sermon on you women are out of place. You shouldn't be doing these things. What I did when I got there was I began to preach about the role of men and what God had called men to do. And I began to gently rebuke the men in the church for not stepping up and fulfilling the role God had given them and not taking responsibility. And women in the church began to come to me and say things like, for the first time in my life, in my marriage, my husband is trying to be a spiritual leader. And then I had women who were leading in leadership roles, and in some ways, some cases, roles they should not have been in. But they began to come to me and say, the Lord's led me. I need to step down from this role. It occurred to me that as long as I'm doing it, men in the church won't step up and do what they should be doing. And I saw a remarkable thing happen that we had what I call a bloodless coup. I mean, there was a transformation in the church, but no one felt devalued. No one felt pushed out. I didn't blame women for filling a leadership vacuum. I mean, and frankly, this is what will happen when men aren't fulfilling the leadership that they should. Somebody's going to step into that role, and a godly woman can't stand a leadership vacuum, and she'll step in and fill the role that she has to fill. But this is why pastors really need to train and place men. So you need to have those kind of things where you're training men, where you're getting them accustomed to service. And you can begin with things that are not necessarily spiritual. One of the key things we used to do at Buck Run when I was pastor there, we had a free oil change for single women and single moms and the men in our church that knew how to change oil. And we had garage owners and people that really knew a lot about cars. They would come and on a Saturday we'd advertise this a free oil change for single moms. Now we didn't. We got women that were married, I'm sure, coming. We didn't check. We just advertised it that way, and we would do an inspection on their car and change their oil for free. And while that was happening, women in our church would then talk to them and sort of find out their needs, and if we could help them with clothing, with school supplies, we did that. But man, the camaraderie that it built among our men who were doing this ministry, and while the women in our church were ministering to those women, it was just a real healthy thing. You've got to think about activities like that so that you're using the men in your church. I did a men's Bible study. We called it Bibles and Biscuits. And we would meet at a Cracker Barrel early in the morning. And our guys would order their breakfast, and then I'd stand up. We'd take over half the restaurant, and then I would just teach. And we got our men in the Word. We began to use these men in ministry, in Bible study, and then you start putting them in places of service like teaching. You're always training, recruiting, placing. You're thinking about who here would be a good deacon, who here could serve as an elder, who here could teach, and you're working with them to develop those skills and you develop them as assets. You really need to do that. I think if you don't do it, few men will respond. But if you've got a pipeline, a way that you're bringing men through and encouraging them, then they're a lot more likely to get involved. And especially when you put them in groups and they see others doing that. Remember, you're always going to reproduce whatever you honor. So you want to honor those men who are serving well and point out to others, oh, this is what we're trying to produce. So when you are developing the men in your church, teaching them what it is to be a true man of God, not some chest bumping, guy who's just trying to be, practices toxic masculinity, but a man who, like Jesus, is a servant leader in love with the Lord, in love with his word, leading his wife, his children, the church well, then you're going to see really a lot of growth spiritually and numerically in your church, because it's a place where people are comfortable coming. It is God's design. And when you read Paul's greetings at the end of Romans 16, when he lists all those people, notice how he singles out those who have served. There are both men and women, but it's important that you honor those that are serving and especially develop them so that you're raising up a generation of leaders. And when you do that, you pastor well.